everybody, and happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of Mavens in Manufacturing. We are actually on episode 198, which is kind of freaking me out because I can't believe I'm like 2 episodes away from 200. Because Chris Lukey just celebrated his 200th episode not too long ago. But I'm super excited. Today we have Liz Shovlin. She is someone that I met last year at IMTS through Tony Gunn in my time with MTD. I don't know if all of you know this, but I actually do some work for MTD CNC, which is a UK brand, and she was working with Mastercam at the time, but she recently took up a new role, and that is something she's going to be talking about today with us. So if you're tuning in, feel free to drop questions or comments in the comments section. Sometimes there is a little bit of a lag, so just be patient with me, and I promise I will get through all of those comments. But Liz, let's turn the mic over to you. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Megan. Thanks so much for having me. It's good to see you.
Yes, thank you. So can you just start off with your background story? Like, how did you end up in the manufacturing world and, lead us into your journey from Mastercam to Baltimore Aircoil Company?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started in manufacturing, I feel like because so many women do by accident, right? I found a role in marketing, which I was really excited about and figured out early on that I wanted to be in marketing, and found a role selling design, engineering, and manufacturing software, marketing it rather. And that's how I really got excited about manufacturing. I was so impressed to see the customers creating and making so many different things and making aerospace parts and all of that. And then I really stuck with it. I spent some time in product management roles, product line leader and director of sales and marketing in a few different areas. And ultimately, here I am today. So transitioned to BAC a few months ago. So I'm a very new employee there and leading the new market segment. So happy to be here.
Can you give us a high overview of what BAC is and some of the stuff that they're doing within the sector?
Sure. BAC is reinventing cooling to sustain the world. So what does that mean? That means all types of different products that contribute to cooling of different types in different spaces. Me specifically, I'm working in some of our newer market segments. So working with data centers, EV battery manufacturers, and hydrogen production. So there's a lot that our company does. I encourage everybody to check it out. It's one of those organizations that I learned is really everywhere, but you might not look and see it. But you'll be surprised once you figure it out that really we are in a lot of places.
Yeah. So, within our industry, it's not uncommon for people to be within one industry and then transition into a newer industry. And a lot of people ask this question to me because I'm a tech writer and I write about several different technologies and processes that some are related and some are not related. And they're just like, how do you keep up with it and learn about it? And I just do research. But from your experience, how is it, going from one industry into a completely different one? How has the onboarding process been for you?
The onboarding process has been great. I was attracted to BAC because it's an employee-owned organization and product-driven and manufacturing hard goods. And that, I feel like once you get involved in manufacturing of hard goods, there are so many similarities, and I'm not changing functions. I'm still in marketing, so I hold all those core principles and core skills true. However, there's a lot to learn, right? When you change type of product, type of industry, different types of customers. But I think it's important that you work with an organization like a BAC who has an empowered team, empowered employees, who has onboarding, who works with its, different teams and buddy systems and provides mentorship and training, on-the-job training, and getting out to see those customers and understand what they do.
So you're within marketing, which is something similar to what I do. And I've been in marketing departments before. And I know that when you get into some of that technical information, it can be a little bit of a puzzle, right? On how to figure out to present that information in an interesting way that's going to grab audience's attention. So how do you approach developing a marketing strategy when entering a new organization with an established brand? Like, what are some of the things that you do to make sure that you're catching that story and that aha moment that really engages the audience?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I feel like the first and foremost, the most important thing is to understand the customer and get to know
Mm-hmm.
the customer base and what do they struggle with? What do they need? What do they want? So that you can understand who it is you're talking to and really trying to help ultimately at the end of the day. So
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things I focused on first and foremost in many different roles, right? Whether it be some of my roles in electronic components or here today with cooling solutions. And then next, aside from that, would be, I think, interviewing, surveying, asking questions, right? In a couple of my different roles, we've done some internal surveys just to understand like the position of the brand and hear from the frontline employees who are working with those customers every day. What is the perception of our company? What does the
Mm-hmm.
customer think about us? Right. And also, of course, get it from the customers'
Mm-hmm.
words too. But then you can begin to understand the full picture and where you actually sit in that industry, in that market space or that niche or whatever segment of manufacturing you're working in. You can start to figure out where you're at and where you want to be, right? Based on the organizational strategy or the customer's needs that you're chasing. All of those things and begin to adapt your positioning and build then a plan with all that data and all that information.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any like tips or insights on how to really balance the branding and the technical education in your content? Because I know that seems to be a challenge for a lot of companies, especially companies with smaller marketing departments. They don't know where that healthy balance is with the information that they're trying to display, and especially if you're trying to really bring brand awareness on some of the products that you're showcasing. How do you find that right balance between the branding and the technical education?
Yeah, it can be so difficult, right? Because once we get into some of these products and the products I work with today or yesterday or previously, they're so dense. There's so much information. It's so important to have those technical specifications and performances and tests
Mm-hmm.
proven. Because if you don't, you really don't have the product that the customer needs. But at the same time, right, when we're marketing the product, we can't lead with all of that. We can't lead with all those performances, specifications. It'll just become lost. And then we get into a position where we're going back and forth with, competitors, and then you're really stuck.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's something I try to work on, but continuing to have that in your marketing, but lead with the human element, lead with the human portion of that, right? And have your team at the front and center of everything, or have your engineers who are knowledgeable, whatever that may be, at the front
Mm-hmm.
of your marketing and put that out there.
I
So I think that's storytelling piece of it.
Yeah, I just had a recent conversation with one of my clients this morning, and one of the things they were talking about is a product that they make, and they're like, "But it's so boring. Like, it's nothing that anybody would get excited about." And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what is it used for? Like, what are we doing with this product? Like, what sort of components are you like, what is it getting put into, and how is that
Yeah.
making a change for some of your customers? Like, what problems is it's solving? And it's funny because I feel like some engineers get so caught up in their everyday grind that they forget sometimes that without those components that they're designing and producing, some of these things wouldn't even be around. Tony Gunn is really well known for that Think a Machinist hashtag that he started, and sharing the stories like, oh, without this component, then we wouldn't have airplanes, we wouldn't have seats to sit in. So I think helping companies really connect those dots is a fun journey to go on. I don't know, like if you've had that same experience.
For sure. And sometimes it's also funny too, because you realize quickly, oh, our customers really don't want to think about us. They don't want to have to worry about this component or this product that we offer as part of
Mhm.
their overall system because they have so many other things to think about. And I work for an electronics component company and, you know, thinking about the airplanes that the the parts went on to, right? We can't have a problem with a lead time. We can't have a problem with X, Y, or Z, and making sure that we had those key messages included and we led with those.
Yeah.
While also like speaking to the benefits of the customer. That really made a difference and that really helped because they saw it was easy to work with the product. They saw it clearly solved their challenge and their need, and it wasn't something that was going to be problematic or very in-depth when they have all these other bigger issues to think about.
Mm-hmm. So sometimes, the people that are doing the work, they have the best stories, I think. And I think engineers are no exception to that. Like, they have amazing stories that they can share and tell. But again, it's getting through that hard shell that a lot of them I've come across seem to have. And one of the things that I would do to get through that shell is get them in teacher mode so that they could teach me about what they were doing. What have you found most effective trying to connect with the technical audiences like the engineers and plant managers or maintenance teams? Like, how do you connect with that audience?
Yeah, I honestly, Megan, I think it goes back to you really have to start to listen and understand
Mhm.
what is their problem, what are they trying to do in their role, and get clear on that, and then be able to say, well, here's how we can support and help you, right?
Gosh.
And try to speak to some of those things too. But honestly, on the fun side of things too, I've seen competitions have a lot of success, right? You have some type of competition there and it's a design challenge or something like that. Thinking back to some of my days at other companies, that can be a really fun element too. I don't know what it is. A lot of the engineers are really competitive.
Yeah, they for sure are. I think they're a lot of fun to talk to too. When I worked at this work holding company, one of the engineers, what did he call me? He called me like a shiny penny or a dirty penny or something like that. And I'm like, the heck does that mean? And he goes, look it up if you're such a good writer. And I'm like, okay, I will look it up. And it was like someone that comes in at the most inopportune times. So what he was saying is like, because I always needed information from him, always seemed to come into his office when he was working on something that had like a pretty tight deadline. And I was just, and when I came in the next day and told him that I found out the definition, he just started laughing. And he was just he's been in the industry 50 plus years. So he like had a lot of that legacy knowledge, and it was just cool to sit down. And so every now and then when I went into his office, he had like coffee or something for me, and we built a pretty cool relationship. But yeah, he was very competitive with the knowledge that he had, and it was just interesting to see the stuff that they would give each other in the engineering rooms all the time. So very fun on the marketing side of things, I thought, just to hear those stories. I do want to call out a couple of people. Hank is in here. Hi, Hank. Hi, Peyton and Aiden. So Hank has two daughters that watch the show. So later on, we'll get into, how we can use storytelling to really attract different audiences and to the sector, specifically women. And then we have Ayush. I'm sorry if I'm destroying your name, but hi, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. If you guys have questions, feel free to drop them in for Liz. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you is, are there any lessons from your time at Mastercam that you're carrying forward into this new position with BAC?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it at the beginning too, Megan, a little bit, just thinking about understanding where does your brand really sit in the industry or with your customers and their perception. So, anytime you're coming into a new organization, you have to understand that in order to build a bridge with your messaging, with your campaigns and all of that to where you want to go as an organization. So for a lot of companies, maybe on the smaller end of things too, maybe they're really known for providing one type of product or one type of service, one type of machining service or something like that. But since that time, they've acquired new products and new staff, and they have all kinds of new capability. Well, that's something like we have to figure out, how do we become no longer just known as, a stamping house? Now we do so much more than that, screw machining, et cetera, and really solve different type of challenges for the customer. So that's one of the things that when I was at Mastercam, the team and I really focused on trying to understand is where do we sit in the market today and what's missing, right? Between, what do we want to be? What are our actual strengths that we feel the customers, or more importantly, the customers feel that we can support and solve their challenges with. So I would say that is something that, I dabbled with in previous roles, but learning about that and focusing on that. And sometimes the opposite, if you join a large company, it can be almost a little bit harder to change the perception of the company and like the image that they have and become something different, because there's so much legacy, there's so much information. You really need to spend a lot of time to build a campaign to do that.
Yeah. So one of the things that, I'm always interested in talking about, because right now, I think it's set at the manager level, we're 1 in 4. And then at the C-suite level, it's like 13% or something. I'm wrong on that stat. I know I am, because I got a feeling in my gut where I'm like, nope, that stat's wrong. But it's small percentage. But I know we're 1 in 4 at like the mid-level range of managers. So in terms of like leadership, what does that mean to you, especially as a woman in manufacturing marketing? Like, what does that term mean to
Leadership.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, leadership for me, ultimately for me, it comes down to empowered teams, leading and supporting empowered teams. So a lot of times I see leaders who believe or feel that they're empowering their teams and giving them the tools, or saying, yep, go ahead, that's your area, focus on that, but without some support. And sometimes that can change, right? Sometimes there's guidance needed. Sometimes there's a demonstration needed, right? Maybe we go and present this to the customer and I present the first time, and the second time we do it together, and last time you do it independently, if I could really water it down. But ultimately, I think it means supporting your team to be able to grow into the role and into future roles and out of the role, ultimately, if they want to do that, into like their future goals as well. So giving them the tools, giving them the support, the coaching, the guidance, sometimes the space, right? So sometimes as leaders, we struggle. What's going on? I want to know. How far along are we on this project? Are we meeting the milestones and all that? So part of that for me is recognizing those things that I want individually too, that are important to me in my role and for my boss, for example, and setting up a system to be able to do that so that the employee can do what they need to do, grow, and complete their work and learn their lessons as independently as is comfortable.
So Jim, do you know who Jim Mayer is?
Yes.
So he presented at the Industrial Marketing Summit, and it was like my favorite presentation there. And he just had the room engaged. But one of the interesting things that he really tackled and talked about was how, if you have poor leadership, then your marketing is not going to be successful. And I just thought that was an interesting point that he made. And I was just wondering like how you felt about that comment, because I was never connecting the leadership of a company with a successful marketing strategy. And it took that presentation to really help me see that connection and if you don't have leadership behind your marketing strategy, you might not be able to deploy a successful one. So how do you get leadership buy-in with some of your marketing strategies? Like what relationship, how does that work, building that strong relationship?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's there's other circumstances and it is difficult to achieve that, but focusing on shifting from reactive to proactive, I feel like is one of the foundational pieces that's really required. And I've seen a lot of teams struggle with, or I've seen teams that are struggling. That's because they're in that kind of cycle where we're reacting to requests instead of building a plan and communicating it and moving forward. So a big piece, I think, of building that trust and buy-in and all of that is the communication and planning and strategy rather than just reacting. But I totally agree with what Jim's saying too, because there are some environments in which, micromanagement is is present. Maybe that's the leader style. And unfortunately, then, you're not going to have those empowered teams feeling like they have the space to be creative, or they have the opportunity to be proactive and build a strategy and adapt and move forward. So having a leader with a forward-looking vision, strategy, clearly communicating the goals within the organization, only enables the marketing team to be able to set the space that they need to follow through with those goals and bring the customer into the organization, those customer needs we talked about, and create the campaigns and creativity that they need to be able to share that.
So throughout your journey, who have been like your major mentors or advocates? Because I know that there's been a lot of women that I've talked to who they've admitted, I probably would have quit if I didn't have these people, along with the journey with me, because sometimes it gets hard. But then I've had other women who are like, I've never had an issue. Like, I've always had people come in and support me and be that type of mentor where I thought I could accomplish anything just because we had that great relationship. So are there any individuals that you think of right away at the top of your head that have really helped you along your journey and made you the leader that you are today?
Yeah. I feel like there's not one person. There are several. There are several people who've been there at different stages of my life or career along the way, who helped me kind of shape that, who've offered me the opportunity maybe to participate in leadership trainings or to step into a new role, right? To try sales or something like that, that really helped change my perspective about an organization. And some who, maybe are in a more difficult environment, right? Maybe leadership outside of your immediate team, your immediate manager, can be difficult. And you have somebody that's really willing to coach you and help show you the way to navigate some of those more difficult challenges. So I feel like whenever I get asked this question, I say, no, I don't have a mentor. I have so many mentors. I feel really lucky in that sense. And I think that's something that I wish more people kept in mind, because your career changes, your life changes, and it's okay to have a mentor at a time that you're really close with, and maybe in a couple of years you're not as close with anymore. Maybe you still stay in touch, maybe you don't, right?
Yeah.
But things evolve and move along. So I think I've gone with the flow a little bit in that area and kind of moved with life and the stages and worked alongside those different mentors at those different times. And it's really worked for me.
Are there any other like resources other than people that you go to really stay sharp in learning what is changing within the industry? Because I know that that's a big thing too. Like, I have probably too many tabs in my bookmark section and like too many newsletters that I'm following, but I try to read different niche industry newsletters and listen to different podcasts. Is there anything like that you like doing to really stay on top of what's going on in the industry?
Yeah, I definitely follow a few of those and listen to some of the podcasts and follow, SWE and Women in Manufacturing and all of those, which is important. I think everybody should do that as a baseline to have the industry perspective. But honestly, Megan, I try to look outside of the industry and get a perspective, you know what I mean, from the outside looking in, because we're doing this every day. We're here, we're visiting the plant, we're visiting the customer, and we're so engrossed in manufacturing. I try to listen to maybe reports from Forbes, New York Times, some of the bigger organizations saying, here's what's going on in the world, and taking that with my own experience and, interpreting it. But I also try to say, more informed on the leadership side of things. So I'll go to some books and kind of read through a few of those. I'm reading one now that I really like. It's called Let Them from Mel Robbins. There's probably 15 other people. Yeah, you're probably reading it too. I think it's number one.
I haven't read it yet, but I've heard about it, and it's on my to buy list. So I have a list
really
of
like
books
it so
to
far.
buy.
You should
Is
read
it
it.
good?
It's good. It's good. And it gives a nice perspective on kind of what it sounds like, right? Stepping back a little bit to be able to think about what's important. But I think it can help marketers so often get wrapped up in that reactivity,
Yeah.
cycle, question and answer, kind of solving the challenge at hand, to help be able to step back a little bit, think about the bigger picture and what the ultimate goal is to move forward. So I try to stay involved in some of those things to keep
Yeah.
fresh.
Well, one of the things that you posted to help promote this episode was that this year you set a goal for one of your missions is to bring in more women into this space. So why is that important for you to be a part of? Like, why is that a part of your mission? And what are some of the things that you're doing on purpose, I guess,
Yeah.
to really bring awareness to some of these opportunities for more women to join in the sector?
It's so important to me because manufacturing, like I said, it's been an accident getting into this, and we have a branding problem. I think you and I have talked about that before. And in manufacturing, it's not branded for women. I'll just use that as one example. Other, groups of people are not also readily marketed to when we're talking about hiring and all of that in the manufacturing space. But it's also something I've seen changing a
Mm-hmm.
lot over the last 15 or so, probably
Mm-hmm.
more than that now, 20 years that we've been working in manufacturing. And I've seen a shift where I see a lot more women
Yeah.
involved. And we saw that at IMTS too. I don't remember the exact specific stats, but there's significantly more women at this past IMTS than the prior, which is great to see. So I've seen that work, and I've seen teams in certain areas, in certain segments of manufacturing, become more diverse. And I've seen things become more creative. And I've seen more families find success or stability, or
Right.
longevity because of manufacturing. So that's why it's so important to me.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully other women can find all the great benefits and opportunities that you and I have found in the industry.
Yeah. Are you
Um,
doing anything on the personal side to like really connect with women and like let them know of these opportunities?
yeah, on the personal side, I mean, I try to speak as much as I can, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
has not been comfortable for me always, but it's something I've been trying in the last year or so, to use my social media platforms or my voice or my experience to just share what I know to help
Mm-hmm.
others, and see if they can benefit from that. I am a mentor in some spaces as well. Um, so that's been great. I've also decided to work with my local community and our township on the Human Relations Commission. And a big part of the objective there is to help women, other groups of people, find employment and find opportunities in different spaces. So we have some exciting, initiatives that we're working on, like career fairs and things like that, to be able to show women all the opportunities at different manufacturing companies in the region who may not be marketing to women, who may not
Yeah.
be like going to these new spaces to find all the talent that they need. So we always hear
Mm-hmm.
about the skills gap and the talent needs and all of that. So we're trying to bridge the gap in some of those areas.
That's really cool. I was at Automate 2 years ago in Detroit. And for those of you who don't know Sammy Birch, she works with Mission Design. Mission Design and Automation, or Mission. If I'm messing up the name, Sammy, I'm sorry, but it's Mission. And they're a systems integrator. And she brought two interns with her at the automation or automate show that I went to in Detroit. I think that was 2 or 3 years ago. And I was talking to the interns and I'm like, oh, do you like working there? And they're like, yep, Sammy's great. The whole team is great. And then I asked them like why they stopped at their table at the career fair. Cause for me personally, I thought career fairs were always like boring. Like they were just tables with brochures and stuff. And I was just like, what made you stop at their table? And they were like, honestly, it was because Sammy was there and there was only like her table and maybe one or two other companies that had women at the table. And they were like, so we only went to the tables that had women because we feel like, okay, if you have a woman here representing your company, that means there's more women working there. And we want to work in a company where we can connect with other women and be able to establish those relationships and be in a place where there's people that look like us. And I was like, that is so interesting. So for companies who say, hey, this doesn't matter, yes, it does, because I've talked to people where it mattered to them to link up with a company where other women were at. So I just think that was an interesting conversation. That's
great.
Yeah. That's so cool. I think that's awesome. For anyone who would like to be a marketer entering industrial or manufacturing environments, do you have like any advice for them? Because I fell into this by accident too, and I'm learning a lot still as I go along, and I'm just like, man, I wish I would have known that from day one. Like, this would have been really helpful. Is there any advice to young professionals that you would give who are entering in the marketing space for this sector?
Yeah, I have had experience at many different size organizations. Like, if I could just think of something simple, right? Because they'll listen to this for 5 seconds and move on. If I could give one quick tip, it would be to try a small company. And the reason I say that is because marketing is it's so important to learn different areas of the business in marketing to be able to effectively communicate with those different areas of the business, but also to understand what challenges the end customer may experience in their day-to-day as well.
Mm-hmm.
And working in a small company gives you the opportunity to do that and work with the different groups, work with engineering, work with sales, operations, finance, HR, whatever it might be, and really get into some of the nuts and bolts of the marketing campaigns that you'll build and really understand the program itself.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's less, volume and less people and less bureaucracy and all that. And I'm glad I did that because it really helped me understand how an organization works, and you're able to scale it up. Also gives you maybe a different training in how to work hard, work effectively, change, the work that you're doing today because there's some crisis you have to work on tomorrow, which, let's face it, we can say we need to be, strategic and proactive, but there's always something that comes up sometimes, and you have to be able to roll with it. So I think a small company is a great place to learn that.
I think that's a great advice because too, you wear so many different types of hats. Like, you're not just the marketer for that small business. You're the event coordinator, you're the community connector, you're sometimes the mediator between sales and engineers sometimes. So it definitely is an interesting experience working with smaller companies. I want to do a quick fire round with you to get into this. Jill did say hi too. She's in Missouri. Like, he can't stay on the whole time. We'll catch rest of the recording. Totally fine. There also will be an article after this. So one of the things that I get a lot of critiques from with Tony, especially because he's a tea drinker and I'm not, and I try to be, and I just can't. Do you like coffee or tea?
Coffee, 100%. I'll go for some tea. I don't hate tea or anything. I'm not prejudiced against the tea, but coffee, 100%. I need it in the morning.
I asked, so I do work with MTD, and they're a UK brand, and we have a WhatsApp chat group, and I was like, okay, I need advice from the British people. How do I drink my tea? And it was hilarious because there are different ways to drink tea, apparently. And they were like, you just started a civil war, Megan. I'm like, I just need to know what's the best way to drink it. What's the most underrated marketing tool?
I think a marketing automation system. I really do. I think they get taken for granted these days and as like older technology, but I still think it's the bread and butter, and you need it. Without it, you can't be successful.
Do you have a favorite one?
I do not. I do not have a favorite one, and I say no because it depends on what CRM you're using and what other platforms your websites are, and if you have social tools and all that. So it's got to be case by case.
That's true. I am a little biased because I've worked a lot with HubSpot, and I freaking love their automation features that they have where you can set something up and then just let it go.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. So yes, I think that more companies need to automate their marketing processes. First thing you do in the morning other than drink coffee.
Brush my teeth. Brush my teeth,
Same.
yeah. I mean, I'd say check my phone, but I don't want to admit that part. So.
Yeah. I'm trying not to do that. I'm trying to
Same.
shut my phone off more now. And then I get yelled at because my daughter's trying to call me, like, why aren't you answering your phone? I'm like, because I turned it off. And she's like, what if I were to get into a cut? So then she guilts me into turning it on. And I'm like, okay, I'll leave it on just for you. And so I silent most of my notifications. What is your favorite marketing buzzword to retire?
Oh, my favorite marketing buzzword to retire. I'm thinking of all the like sales buzzwords instead of marketing buzzwords, like let's take it offline or let's get everything out on the table. Any of those like cliche catchphrases, I don't really go for. You know what I mean? Marketing buzzwords. I feel like most of the time marketers do a great job of keeping everything with meaning and having, there's a technical reason behind it. But sometimes, yeah.
Is custom solutions.
Which is true, right? Like it probably is a custom solution, but everything's a custom solution now. Exactly.
Right. I got into it pretty good with somebody because I was like, what does that mean? What does custom solution mean? And they're like, it fits the customer's needs. And I'm like, what are the customer's needs? Like, how is this custom? Like, are you building everything from scratch? Like, because do you have a template? Like, what does it mean? What is this going on? Why is no one else making this at all? Like ever? Because your competitor down the street is saying the same thing. They're doing custom solutions. Like what's so custom about it? So, and then you've already mentioned one book, which I'm going to put in the show notes. Let them. Is there a podcast or a specific person that inspires you?
I follow Cy Wakeman at the suggestion. Cy Wakeman, I'll type it in the comments here. Let's see if I can open it up for everybody. But yeah, I mean, she's an author and she's got some great reads out there about like taking some of the drama out of work and leadership, which can be, I mean, frankly, that's a big part of leadership, right? There's always something going on and some kind of problem to solve and all of that. And that's okay. It's great. But she helped change some of my thinking about taking some of that out of this. Like ultimately at the end of the day, what are we trying to achieve? And helped me stop getting so caught up in some of that stuff. So
I love that. Have you read Crucial Conversations?
I have not. No, I have not.
That is a really good book to where it gives you tools on how to take the emotion out of very strenuous types of conversations. And it like opened my eyes to take my personal experience out of it and look from within and like ask my questions. Okay, is this person responding this way because something terrible happened to them, or they aren't feeling well, or is there some trauma there that's underlying that's making them feel triggered by this sort of thing? And then how to bring it back to like a very neutral conversation where no one's getting offended or anything. It's a really interesting book, because there were times where I would get into a conversation and I'd be like, why are they being such a jerk about this? But it wasn't that they were trying to be a jerk. It was just that they were being more direct, and it wasn't anything personal. But because I was having a bad day, I was taking it personally. So I had to like step outside of my emotions, just be like, no, this is a me problem. Like they're not doing anything except just being direct, and I'm in a bad mood, so I'm taking it differently.
Yeah, you probably really like Cy Wakeman. I mean, she's got reality-based leadership, I think, is the first, and then there's No Ego, which was the one that turned me on to her. That was kind of referred from somebody. And they're great. They're great reads, and they help with some of that.
I'll have to I've heard of No Ego. I'll have to read that one. I heard it's really good. LinkedIn user. For me, it's a solution that's not a standard product or in the catalog.
Okay.
And then
the In-N-Out Burger solution, right? The off-label, off-menu product.
Ayush said, is market strategy is very helpful in robust molding or not? And or not, then why? Is marketing strategy helpful in a robust molding?
So maybe like injection molding or over molding as a service, kind of something like that. I would say so. I mean, you need a marketing strategy just to differentiate, right? There's so many players in that space. So figuring out what your customer needs and what you're able to solve as part of that, really leaning into that, even if it's super specific, could make a big difference in your sales and your results.
Yeah. I had a really good manager at the chemical etching company, and I told her, I was like, I'm stealing this template from you. And she's like, go for it. I totally don't mind it. But she created like a spreadsheet where it was the whole year. So she divided it up in quarters, and then anything that they were promoting or marketing to, she had the side column. So like if you were doing social media or if you were doing trade publications or trade shows, they had two different types of emails. One would go out to their whole list, and then they had another one that would just go out to their specific niche industries that they were involved in, because they had like 4 main industries. And then every quarter had a theme, so they wouldn't market anything outside of that theme, and it made it very focused. And then they were able to plan, you know, what sort of things are we going to talk about, why we're leading up to this trade show, and how does that connect with what we're exhibiting at the trade show. And it just made things so much easier for the company to really focus on, okay, here's our focus. So then engineers weren't getting overwhelmed. The salespeople had a better strategy to talk about the things that they were trying to focus on. So I told her I stole it. I was like, I'm stealing this. I'm going to use it. She's like, totally fine. Dave said, not a standard product or catalog product would be a custom solution, but you could use a standard product or catalog into that custom solution. So then, yeah, I'm not going to dive into it. It's a lot. Well, Liz, I really appreciate you taking time. I think you're amazing. And I know there's a lot of people that have worked with you, especially from your past position with Mastercam, and they always have great things to say about you. So I know BAC has got a really great person on their hands, and I can't wait to see what sort of stuff that you do with BAC. So I'm going to be definitely keeping an eye on you. But is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience or mention that we didn't cover in today's conversation?
I don't think so, Megan. Thank you for having me. It's been a real honor and pleasure to join you on your show. I've been following it for a long time, and it's awesome to be amongst other women who have done such great things. So it's been a real pleasure. And yeah, I look forward to connecting with everybody and keeping in touch with you. And I'm on LinkedIn. And, you know, if anybody has any comments or questions or anything like that, feel free to reach out to me anytime. I love to connect and make new friends.
Awesome. Well, what would be your call to action for our audience today?
My call to action for our audience today would be to visit your marketing department if you have one, and ask them how you can help, right, with their initiatives.
I love that. Yes, be nice to your marketing department. Sometimes our job is not very easy, and
but you'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. They'll probably sign you up to write a blog post or help on a new project or something like that, and it'll probably be really fun and enjoyable, and you'll try something new. So
awesome. Well, Liz, thank you so much for tuning in. And to all those who tuned in and left comments, I appreciate your engagement and your support. Next week, we have a guest, and I'm trying to find her name in my document. Just Kent Johnson will be on next week for episode 199. She's a certified leadership development coach at the Perk. So we're going to be talking about leadership development and why that's important right now, especially within the manufacturing sector. But stay tuned. I do have a message from our sponsor, Fresh Horizons. I have amazing Mavens gear because of this company. They are a small family business owned in my owned community, and they are just husband and wife. They're amazing and awesome. So if you're looking for freshening up or branding, be sure to reach out to them at Fresh Horizons. And I'll hope you guys have a great weekend. Bye, everyone. This episode of Mavens has been sponsored by Fresh Horizons Group. Fresh Horizons Group is a family-run company that was founded on the premise of helping organizations and businesses better tell their story through high-quality branded apparel and promotional items. Freshen up your brand by contacting Fresh Horizons today at freshhorizonsgroup.com.